Hello and welcome to the recorded series of our lessons. This lesson is part of the Lebanese curriculum for the 3rd Secondary Literature and Humanities section. Part Sociology, Unit 5, Brave New Worlds, Chapter 2, Global Complexities. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to discuss the definition, causes, and effects of poverty, suggest some measures to reduce poverty, distinguish between tone and mood, and answer various types of questions. What is common between these images? There's poverty, destitution, and deprivation. This is so sad. Why do you think people should care about other people's poverty? They should care because your dignity is tied to every other human being on earth. This sympathy will make you a better human. We all know what poverty is. We'll have a look at the official definition of poverty as seen by the United Nations and the World Bank. The United Nations sees poverty as a denial of choices and opportunities, a violation of a human dignity. The World Bank, on the other hand, sees poverty as deprivation. It is the inability to acquire basic needs and services necessary for survival with dignity. Which of the following items fall under the category of basic needs of a family? As you can see, all words marked in red are extremely important for human survival. However, if you have a look at the UN definition of abject poverty, you can see the inclusion of the word information. This would make items like television and internet access equally important. What vocabulary words or items would you use to describe poverty? As you can see, we have a Wordle, image, and a word bank. You can select from these two images words to describe poverty. When people see a poor kid or a poor person, rarely do they think about the causes that got them there. What causes poverty? It can be overpopulation, global distribution of resources, colonialism. This is when rich countries exploit the riches of poor countries, as in the case of Africa. Illiteracy and inadequate education, environmental degradation, and corrupt governments. With the exception of environmental degradation, most of the other causes can be eradicated. They have roots in politics rather than in natural causes. What do you think are the effects of poverty? In this touching illustration by the artist Angela Lopez, we have an idea about the vicious circle that the poor are stuck in. We have wage theft, hunger, crime, drugs, sex trade, homelessness, exploitation. It's an endless cycle of misery. It sucks them in. We'll have a look at an excerpt from Charles Dickens' novel Bleak House. We'll see poverty from the point of view of literature. The excerpt focuses on Joe, a street sweeper, a poor homeless boy who lives in a particularly grim and poverty-stricken part of the city known as Tom All Alone's. Name Joe. Nothing else that he knows on. Don't know that everybody has two names. Never heard of such a thing. Don't know that Joe is short for a longer name. Thinks it long enough for him. He don't find no fault with it. Spell it? No, he can't spell it. No father, no mother, no friends, never been to school. What is home? What do you infer about Joe? Joe seems to be an illiterate orphan with very limited knowledge and capabilities. This is clear through his lower class slang. Never heard of such a thing, reminiscent of Shaw's flower girl Eliza. We'll read this part to learn about mood. What is mood? Mood is the emotions that you feel while you are reading. Some literature makes you feel sad, others joyful, still others angry. The main purpose for some poems is to set mood. What words are used to describe Joe's street Tom All Alone's? Joe lives, that is to say, Joe has not yet died, in a ruinous place, known to the like of him by the name of Tom all Alone's. It is a black, dilapidated street, avoided by all decent people, where the crazy houses were seized upon when their decay was far advanced by some bold vagrants who, after establishing their own possession, took to letting them out in lodgings. Now these tumbling tenements contain by night a swarm of misery, as on the ruined human wretch vermin parasites appear, so these ruined shelters have bred a crowd of foul existence that crawls in and out of gaps in walls and boards and coils itself to sleep in maggot numbers where the rain drips in. Well, how does this description make you feel? Jaws Street is described as ruinous, black, dilapidated, avoided by decent people, full of misery and overflowing with disgusting parasites. This will make you feel gloomy, sorrowful, disgusted. The mood the writer created was that of darkness, melancholy, and repugnance. Can you find the word that describes the mood in this text? We'll have a look at the part that highlights the mood. It must be a strange state to be like Joe. To shuffle through the streets unfamiliar with the shapes and in utter darkness as to the meaning of those mysterious symbols, so abundant over the shops and at the corners of the streets and on the doors and in the windows. To see people read and to see people write and to see the postman deliver letters and not to have the least idea of all that language, to be to every scrap of it stone blind and dumb. The mood of this selection is gloomy due to the use of the word utter darkness. It is also sorrowful. What thoughts about human dignity do you get while reading these lines? To be perfectly true, I have no business here, or there, or anywhere, and yet to be perplexed by the consideration that I am here somehow too, and everybody overlooked me until I became the creature that I am. It must be a strange estate, not merely to be told that I am scarcely human, as in the case of my offering myself for a witness, but to feel it of my own knowledge all my life, to see the horses, dogs, and cattle go by me, and to know that in ignorance I belong to them, and not to the superior beings in my shape whose delicacy I offend. Jaw's ideas of a criminal trial, or a judge, or a bishop, or a government, or that inestimable jewel to him, if he only knew it, the Constitution, should be strange. His whole material and immaterial life is wonderfully strange. His death the strangest thing of all. It must be really painful to belittle the human dignity, to reduce someone into a mere creature and to convince him that he belongs to the class of animals. What is strange? Why is the word repeated 4 times? It is strange how Jah got himself tamed, to believe that he deserves to be regarded as inferior. It is strange how all authorities, political or religious, are in utter indifference to the misery of their subjects. And all the idea here creates a mood of bewilderment and frustration. To whom is Joe compared? We'll have 2 parts of the excerpt, but we'll have a look at the second part because it has words that highlight the mood. It is market day. The blinded oxen, overgoaded, overdriven, never guided, run into wrong places and are beaten out and plunge red-eyed and foaming at stone walls, and often sorely hurt the innocent and often sorely hurt themselves. Very like Joe and his order, Very, very like him. How does this image contribute to the overall mood? Joe is compared to an animal, an ox in particular. This description contributes to the mood of bitterness and outrage. This is a reminder of what tone is so as to distinguish between mood and tone. Whereas mood is the way you feel while reading a selection, tone is the attitude that an author takes toward the audience, the subject, or a character. What words does the writer use to describe the dog? A terrific dog to sheep, ready at a whistle to scamper over their backs and tear out mouthfuls of the wool, but an educated, improved, and developed dog who has been taught his duties and knows how to discharge them. The writer's description of the dog is agreeable and praising. Dickens intends to elevate the dog and lower Joe. So what tone does the writer convey in the following instances? First, when talking about the dog, and in the last part or the last sentence of this selection. When talking about the dog, it's clear that he was ironic. In the last sentence, a wretched evening is beginning to close in. The writer's tone changed into gloomy and sad. So remember that while tone is the author's attitude toward the subject, mood is the emotion created and usually experienced by the reader or the audience. So a sarcastic tone from a child usually triggers an angry feeling or mood in the parent. Also remember that while hunger is caused by poverty, the causes of poverty are mainly political, and that poverty and hunger can both be eradicated if the human willpower and the political decision is found. This might require some measures or solutions on the part of governments, like having some housing plans, transportation, childcare, education, jobs and wages, social safety net, financial literacy, and leadership and race equity. I also recommend you watch this TED Talk video to get inspired about possible ways to eradicate poverty. The video is entitled 3 Reasons Why We Can Win the Fight Against Poverty by Andrew Yoon.
This is to test your understanding. All of the players were sitting quietly and working on their homework. Even though they had a big game that night, everyone knew that it was important to get their work done and stay focused on winning. Even when the fire alarm sounded, everyone quietly pushed in their chairs and walked out of the building. What is the mood of this passage? It is calm. The weather was terrible. No one was willing to go out in such harsh conditions, and the dark skies were very intimidating. Fortunately, all of the Johnson children were safely inside playing board games. The children were laughing and having fun when all of a sudden there was a sharp knock on the door. What is the mood of this passage? It is suspenseful. Your child can't read? Can't do math? Well, maybe they've been spending too much time in school and not enough time playing video games. Everyone knows that kids aren't learning anything at school anyway, so why not just let them play video games all day? The tone of this passage is sarcastic. About 3 million people have to look for a place to sleep at night because they have no homes. Some homeless people have jobs but do not make enough money for food and shelter. Some people become homeless because they lose their jobs or because of illness. They do not have enough resources to make it through the hard time. The tone of this passage is serious. During the holidays, Caleb's mother's house is glittered with decorations and hums with preparation. The family drinks hot chocolate and eats cookies while they joyfully wrap gifts and trim the tree. They feel warm and excited as they sing Christmas carols as a family and sit by the fire into the night. What is the mood of this passage? And yes, it is cheerful.